one of the Wellington IRMT committee members. As we began teasing out ideas on creativity back at the start of last year, the commissioning of composers to write music for our students was an obvious path to pursue. We were keen also, though, to continue the creative process further, to bring together all three important elements in the life of a music composition: the composer, the performer, and the listener. In this case, a rather large number of music teachers. With a focus on a shared music experience, there could be dialogue and feedback on the creative process, and also ways in which creativity can be fostered. As part of the commission, we asked our 5 Wellington-based composers to join us today. Here they are in the front row, to be introduced to you shortly. And although this is meant to be an introduction to the session, could I say to Jonathan, Ewan, Tabea, Natalie and Karlo, thank you for making this journey such a fascinating one. I've so enjoyed your enthusiasm and your willingness in all of this process. It's been a pleasure to be a part of it. And now, alongside our 5 composers, we have 5 young pianists who will give us the first performances of the compositions. Thank you for all your preparation. Enjoy today. Now, the hi-fi book that you've been seeing around a fair bit now, and quite a lot of you have got them, it presents for you 5 works by 5 composers and sends out a high-five handshake as a celebration of their creative endeavours. There are others today to thank for their part in this project, in particular the Stout Trust for financial assistance and SOUNZ for their advice and assistance. And today we also have with us Claire and Simon of Delortso Smith Creative. Are you here with your hand up? Yes, over there. And we thank you for the wonderful artistic input you have given to this book. Today the session will be facilitated by Philip Norman. Philip, we've had so much to enjoy and be inspired by in your sessions on Douglas Lilburn, and now it's the perfect time to introduce you in another of your many musical directions, and that is as a freelance composer. Your biographical notes describe your composing in a delightful manner, from organs to orchestra, car horns to choirs, ballads to ballet. Philip's work, spanning a wide field, have been commissioned or performed by most of the leading music, theatre and ballet companies in New Zealand. We're very pleased to have you here, Philip, to take us through a session which I am sure is going to be a buzz with creativity. Thank you.
Well, this is jolly exciting. Can you hear me from the back? Hands up if you can't. Great. High five, everyone. One could grow old doing this. I've lost my way. Well, hopefully you're feeling really inspired about composing and that you're ready to write symphonies, and there'll be a rush of this coming over the next few years from this concert from Institute of Registered Music Teachers. By the looks of your faces, I don't think so, but I was really delighted to have a wonderful conversation with one of your members, and I think you'll probably recognise who she might be over the next few minutes because of how bright red her face goes or how white it goes. And I've asked her apologies before I go any further. But she came up to me the other night and said, "Oh, I'm just feeling so inspired by this composition process. I started to write a poem about it. What should I do about it? Should I carry on?" I said, "Yes, do." And anyway, this morning, this rather wonderful person slipped into my hand a poem. And I think it's really rather good, and it's really rather relevant, and I'm going to start the session off by reading it. And I hope the person concerned doesn't mind. Wonderful. She is going to identify herself at the end. Here it is. "I sit alone composing, contemplating what to write. Shall it be for oboe, cello, or a flute? I hear a plaintive melody, haunting but unique, never heard before, except inside my head. Should the tempo race or linger? Dynamic strong or quiet? Or maybe somewhere in between in what finds my delight? A name, I must have a name. It eludes me just right now, but if I keep composing, I'm sure it will work out fine. As I write, the mood gets darker, tightens some, then suddenly quickens. Lightens some, then suddenly quickens. I get stuck at here and there, then suddenly inspirations appear. A simple change has done the trick. Now things are moving on oh so quick, but very soon I am undone. It seems to me I need some fun. Before too long, after some months, my music sounds just like a piece, not of cake or piece of pie, but more like antipasto with wine. I sit and dawdle, rambling on, trying hard just to get it done. As the young performer walks across the stage, bows to the audience, one brave young man playing an unknown piece that's never been played before. Will the audience clap and cheer or remain unmoved by it all? I hold my breath for such a long, long time. Soon the music finishes and everything was fine. The audience seemed to like it. The performer played just fine. But I'm still not very happy with bar 39. Stand up, please, Anna Cannon. That was wonderful. Right, as Barbara very eloquently introduced, this composition lark is a process. It's a dialogue conversation between composer, performer, audience. And I think it would be very appropriate if the session, if we allow us to speak our thoughts out loud. So what I'm going to do is we're going to have each piece in turn, and we're going to follow the sequence of the book, which I'm sure you've already bought or thinking about buying immediately after the session. I'm going to ask the composer to introduce the piece, realising, of course, that he's got to hard sell the whole thing to you, and you've got to be in a right receptive mind to really enjoy what you're about to hear. So hopefully the composer will give you a hint about what's to come. The pianists will come up, play the piece magnificently, I'm sure, and then I will intercept the pianist before they sit down and ask for the pianist's feedback and ask them honestly whether they enjoyed it or whether they think it was a load of rubbish. And then I'm going to throw the floor open for a couple of quick comments from you, the audience, as music teachers. Now, we've got to be very careful about this. We don't want any negativity, even if you did think it was rubbish. But like some particular comments that you find makes this piece one that you think you could easily use in your teaching, or just something encouraging, but a bit more than, oh yeah, that was quite good. So a little bit of thought to it, and that would be wonderful, and I think we'll have quite a lot of fun. Yeah, it's always difficult. New piece coming, I mean, what do you say if you don't like it? I recall Alan Ayckbourn, the playwright, very successful playwright, had to suffer through many, many appalling performances in his time because his plays were often performed by, the amateur dramatic societies in a town of population of 35, and they were all in the cast. So he developed some interesting lines that he could use when the dreaded moment comes that he had to go backstage afterwards to talk to the cast. And one of the ones I thought was really funny, really good, and I've used it many times. No, I haven't, I'm joking about that. He comes in the dressing room, darlings, what can I say? You outdid yourselves. So be wary if you hear anybody say that, you know they haven't liked it. Okay, that's enough from me. First pianist we have up is Anna Lin, who is going to play New Year's Eve by Jonathan Crehan. Now I'm going to call on Jonathan to come up and speak very eloquently. And hello. You're there?
Okay.
Okay, so what inspired the piece?
It probably stems back to a mixture of things. The music in it is probably a mixture of my past. My family did a lot of folk music, and then at university kind of got into a bit of electronica, so I kind of got interested in that field of things. These days I'm a piano teacher as well, so a lot of my students are quite into pop music, so I have kind of a bit of that as well. So the piece of music, it comes from online. I went online and I found an electroacoustic folk kind of consortium, a bunch of composers who were quite interested in collaborating in France, and they had an album. I'm often quite stingy. It was a free album, so I downloaded it and I quite liked it. One of the songs was called Abagone, and the neat thing about that particular song is that it had a beautiful kind of folky music over the front of it, but in the background there were people cheering and making lots of noise, laughing. There was fireworks going off, and it was just it's just a really electric kind of sound. So in the music, I'm just trying to, well, it's very hard to kind of copy something or that kind of thing. So I'm just trying to get certain elements from it. So firework kind of sounds, well, like explosions, I guess. And throughout the middle, there's kind of a lot of murmuring piano, which I guess I'm trying to get some of the people talking and that kind of thing. But overall, it's just a big kind of, I'm just trying to get a lot of energy throughout the piece and excitement. So, yeah, that's
excellent. Is it midnight in your piece, or are we moving up to the change of the year?
It's probably, well, maybe 10 minutes before the countdown.
Okay. So the pianist should be semi-inebriated, you think?
Hopefully not.
You didn't hear that. Okay, look, thanks, Jonathan. That's a wonderful introduction. Anna, the stage is yours. Wonderful. I reckon it was 5 minutes to midnight that started. I certainly could hear the chimes at the end. That's great stuff. Now, Anna, please tell us the honest truth. Did you like that?
I did like this piece very much. Well, I like this piece very much.
So what in particular did it appeal to you? From a pianist's point of view?
Well, you can hear the fireworks, and you can really hear like the magic in this piece, and you can hear, the people's emotions of excitement and suspense on New Year's Eve.
Did it fall under the fingers nicely?
Like easy to play.
Yeah. Did you have to work away and practice for hours?
Yeah, I did have to practice some leaps in the left
What do you think a student would probably really get out of this piece as opposed to a lot of other pieces? Is there something in there that you think would be really useful for a student?
Well, there is lots of patterns in this piece, which is very interesting to play, and lots of sequences. That's what I really like about that.
Good. Yes. Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. Now, throw it open to floor. Have we got any? Well, I'm sure we've got millions of reactions, but have we got an intelligent, positive reaction, and somebody brave enough to get up and put their reputation on the line? Or somebody over here. Now, if I can borrow this, and Jonathan, here, introduce yourself to the public and take the microphone over to the good person over there. This is composer getting to meet his public, very important part of the public relations.
I'd like to know, what did you feel about the middle sections, like the Wellington, Mysterioso section? How could you relate that to New Year?
That section I thought of as like when you count down to New Year's Day, it sort of gets quiet and very suspenseful. I think that's what it's about. Yeah.
Somebody brave soul has got their hands up behind there as well, so.
Hi, thanks, Jonathan. Just one for you. It's firmly in C major, it says.
Yes.
So is there a reason you didn't go exploring further afield or up semitone or down semitone?
I was saying that I was going for texture, and I wasn't particularly too interested in kind of exploring different harmonies, like extreme harmonies and things. Generally in my music I don't do it too much. I know there are some people who are very good at that, and I sort of work on the stuff I'm really good at.
Yeah. No, it works really well, I feel, but I just wondered if, it would expand more if you had. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, but if it would expand more if you'd, gone on a little harmonic journey or something.
Yeah.
So
potentially, yeah.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Okay, look, it's great. We're getting lots of feedback, but we'll only get through one piece in an hour and a half. So I think we'll have to draw the line at the 2 questions there. Get your hand up really quickly after the next one if you'd like to ask something. There'll be time for general discussion afterwards. Now, in just a moment, Olivia Singleton is going to play In the Woods by Ewan Clark, but Ewan Clark is going to give us a wonderful breakdown of what his piece is all about.
So as you can tell from the title and I guess the program note, if you've read that as well, In the Woods it's kind of a program piece, although as often happens, I think with composers, if we're honest, the program gets decided partway through or after the piece is written. I think sometimes we just want to express something that is only music can express. It's just a mood that notes express, and we don't necessarily have to put words on it. But if you like, and if the players like, you can imagine a sort of woodland scenario. I don't think it's a New Zealand wood, this one. I think it sounds, the piece, I suppose it's me pining for a bygone era and Europe, I suppose. You'll hear that in the piece. I've just been on my OE, and I think that's something that maybe some Kiwis, maybe I'm not the only one, go through, is just going, Europe, old world. And I think I wouldn't have written this piece before my OE, so I think that's an interesting thing. The other thing is I'm a film composer, and although this piece does sound like it could be film music, I've never ever been commissioned to write film music that sounds like this. It's I suppose music for a film that I haven't been commissioned to, but would probably enjoy being commissioned to write for, if you like. So it's kind of, and I think it's probably a period piece, and it's probably fantastical in some way, if that helps. Okay.
That helps greatly. Thanks very much, Ewan. Yes, a wonderful point you made, actually. There are really only 2 ways to write a piece of music. One is to think of a title and then write music to suit it. And the other way is to write the music and think of a title to suit it. It's a really simple craft. Right, let us hear the piece. Olivia. Oh, fantastic. I could tell by the way you played that you enjoyed it. Am I right?
I'm not going to lie, when I first started learning it, I wasn't crazy about it. But that was because I was learning it hand separately, and you can probably tell it's quite a harmonically complex piece, and when you're learning something hand separately, nothing makes sense. And I'm from Generation Z, where quite typically impatient, as you probably already know. So I wasn't crazy about the idea that I had to
actually do some work.
But once I put once I put hands together, I fell in love with it. I'm crazy about that piece now.
Lovely. Nice to hear that, isn't it? Yeah, that's actually often the ultimate compliment when a performer says to you, God, I hated that piece when I first saw it, but I persevered, and now it's the best thing I play. Not that that's ever been said to me, but it's rather satisfying. I always feel if your performer likes the piece, then you've done a good job, because they're your salesmen. When all is said and done, they're the ones who are going to sell it to an audience. And I thought you sold that very well. Were you happy with how you played?
Oh yeah, congratulations. Thank you.
So obviously all those arpeggio thingies are going to be really good exercise for lazy students to...
I mean, I myself found it quite difficult, and I'm a lazy student. So.
But once you'd got the individual hands, did it fall to pieces quite easily, fall together quite easily, I should say?
Yeah, it didn't take me very long to learn it all. I think the thing about this piece that's challenging is how you're going to play it. Once you've learnt it, and what I found really scary was the composer is going to be in the room when I play it. Like, what is he going to think?
Yes, I can't understand that. We composers are really mild-mannered and encouraging, but performers tend to turn to jelly whenever we come in a room. But you did remarkably well. I couldn't see your knees shaking at all.
I'm a very nervous person. But yeah, I think the thing that's great about learning this piece is exploring different ways to play it, exploring different tempos you can perform it at, playing around with tempos, playing around with dynamics. I did so much playing around with it, and never actually came up with something that I thought was better than anything else I'd done, so it changes every time. I think that's the cool thing about this piece.
Good. How did you feel about her playing around with your precious tempi and
No, I thought you played it extremely sensitively. I think it's actually brave that you took it the speed you did, because there were a lot of really spacious moments in your performance, especially at the end, way more spacious than I sort of imagined it, but it makes you hear it in a different way, and it's one of the great things about performing is that you don't have to obey a composer's metronome marks, to the decimal place, and it doesn't matter, and it depends on the room and your mood and your creativity and the piano and all sorts of things. So, no, it was great, and I love that you made it your own. Yeah.
Oh yes, that's fantastic. But for those of you who weren't here to hear Michael Houston talk the other night, he rather wonderfully described the fact that, the sound of the piano is... the sound of a composer is absolute silence, just like the piano tuner he was talking about. It's only when the pianist comes along and actually starts to play it that it comes to life. And his philosophy, if I can try to capture it in a nutshell, is to hell with what the composer intended, really. The pianist is as much a creator as the composer. Now, I don't know if I'd entirely agree with him, but I think that's an argument for later on, maybe. Look, thank you very much. Now, is there a teacher here who thought that was so wonderful they're going to go out and immediately teach that piece? And if so, would they like to comment? Oh, yes, I've got a hand up right over there. Now, we need to really talk loudly. Put on your best headmistress voice and fill the room with your sound.
Hi, I definitely teach this to my children, especially the ones that are sort of like at 12 years on, that love the contemporary sound, love patterns, love the shift in harmony and tone colour, and I think, thank you. I think the kids will really rave about this. I loved it, and I think it's very playable, and there's so much to learn about rhythm, colour, tempo, mood, and I'm going home to teach that one. Thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Time for one more? Preferably something close to me.
It was interesting that you said that you were a film composer, because straight away I thought this was a wonderful piece of film music, and with the mood and the change of tempo and the dynamics and everything, it brought to mind to me the piano film.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you the question whether you were influenced by that or not.
Yeah, well, yes, probably. I mean, I would love to have, you know, I was probably 12 at the time that film came out, but that's the sort of film that a composer would die to work on, I think, any composer. Maybe not any composer. What's interesting about that film, actually, is that I've heard Michael Nyman say that he's not a lyrical composer. His music's often very minimalist and austere and not romantic at all, but he really brought romanticism and lyricism to that film. And I think a lot of people around the world really responded to that. It's not necessarily sophistication in the music, it's just a lyricism and a simplicity that a lot of people connect to. But he obviously is not the only person who has written music that is, I suppose, influenced by both minimalism and romanticism. I think in film music, often those two are coming together nowadays, both romanticism and minimalism, which are, interestingly, the two things which are kind of hated by some composers in some circles, which I think is interesting. But there we go.
Oh, wonderful. Look, thanks.
Can I just interrupt to say that is so much more playable than Michael Nyman.
Would you like to write that down, sign it, and put it on your blog? That would be great. Thank you. Right, thanks very much to the two of you. Wonderful. Oh, yes, I'll take the ice cream back. Yes, this really is exciting. 2 out of 2 so far. I think it excellences. I can feel my wallet starting to levitate from my back pocket already. We're about to hear Nicole Ting in a moment playing, for a little change of pace, 4 movements instead of 1 in this case, playing Glimpses of Other Worlds by Tabea Squire. Now, well, no, I'm not going to say what the 4 short movements are because Tabea is going to come up and tell us all about it.
My original first thought when I heard about writing pieces for young musicians was to bring the pieces into the world of the young musicians. And so I started off with quite a lot of ideas as to, short pieces. I don't know why it's what it is with short pieces in me. And so I had quite a few actual ideas which I ended up discarding. One of my favourites being My Big Brother is Learning to Drive, which involved hand clusters and a smack. And another one that involved watching clouds. And I think it was watching clouds that made me think about, I don't know what you think, but my memories of childhood seem to include times when I felt like I had what we would now consider a luxury, the time to just observe things and in that way see almost into small worlds contained within our own. For example, the obvious one, the last movement, the kaleidoscope, that is a whole other world right there in that little tube. And from that it led into these pieces that are these glimpses of other worlds and perhaps the sorts of worlds that younger people might be more likely to have exposure to, but which we could also see if we look around. So to break it down, we've got 4 little worlds here. The first one is called Spider Builds Herself a Web. And I wanted to do that one from the beginning, partly because of just the idea of little spidery finger movements, some of which I ended up discarding. And what was interesting when I started sketching material for this was, first of all, the spider web, I built it in fifths, and then I thought, there's no beat. And I was playing this thing and going, I can't find a metronome mark for this. And I knew what the answer was, but I didn't know whether it was an acceptable answer for young musicians, that being senza misura. You have the music in front of you, you'll see it, but I happen to believe that young musicians, when it's explained well, can comprehend what you might consider very lofty musical ideas with great enthusiasm. So I put that in there. It's there, for the spider building herself a web. The next one along is the music figurine that's the name of it. I can't quite remember.
Music box.
The music box. Is it music
box?
box?
Well, according to one, I might be totally wrong.
Music box figurine.
Yes, it is.
There we go. Well, yes, that's right. I remember now. The idea with having these 4 pieces was having also 4 different styles of music, because I enjoy writing different styles, and why not a waltz? So there you go, there's your music box figurine. Next up is something which anyone who knows me will be unsurprised to see, which is a journey into the world of pet rats. And that one mostly just as a little allegro one between the two. But I find it fascinating to watch small animals, not just rats, but birds and insects, and to see the speeded up world they seem to live in. So that's the rats. And then finally, kaleidoscope. And the interesting thing about kaleidoscope is that I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to try writing symmetrical rhythms? And then ended up with this page full of all sorts of symmetrical rhythms and just going, these are just so tricky. And then I remember just putting boxes around the ones which I thought would work, and writing out this piece and going, no, this is still too hard. And then sending something to Barbara and saying, well, I don't think this is grade 5. And she said back to me that, well, it is a bit tricky, but we'll keep it anyway. And the fun part there was also making the hands symmetrical. So there are various kinds of symmetry in there. And that is what I find is also a useful trick for young composers, is there are often too many ideas. There's my pieces here, might be a case in point. To have a concept to hang it on, why not try something like symmetrical rhythms? And I think that making it symmetrical and giving this little idea to hold on to, hopefully will provide the bridge with which a younger player might move from, God, this looks hard, to, okay, this is actually kind of cool. So the kaleidoscope, sort of like a little hook to hang something new on. So yes, you've got your spider, your music box figurine, a bunch of rats, and then a kaleidoscope.
Oh, fantastic. I'm particularly looking forward to hearing the rats, because we have something in common. Our family has kept rats as well. Now, I bet we've kept more than you. We had 27 rodents in our house at one stage, and they were only the ones that we were in charge of feeding.
And they were pets?
Yes, those 27 were pets. I couldn't vouch for the rest of them.
Did you perchance have mixed genders?
Was
that why you had 27?
We bought 2 females, and one of them
turned out not
got to be pregnant.
Oh.
I don't know, biology eludes me. I don't know how that happened. We'd better move on, but thank you very much. Looking forward to the rats. Nicole, welcome. Come over here. I've got a big loud voice that I've been just dying to exercise to show that I can fill the place without the use of a microphone, and you can have that.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay. Well, I really enjoyed these short pieces. They were lovely to play and they were a lot of fun. The last piece was quite challenging, but I got there in the end and really enjoyed playing it.
So which of the four really appealed to you from a pianist point of view?
Before learning the pieces, my favourite was the second.
I wonder why.
But after learning all four, I would say the last two.
Okay. So a similar sort of experience that we had before. That
yes.
Yeah, it's
no
good.
love for the spider, eh?
Oh, I love it.
Well, you're probably dealing with a room of arachnophobes here. So you're
Rats and spiders.
Yeah, I quite like spiders too. Any other people like spiders? We're not alone. What do you think a pianist would particularly get out of it? Why should these good people force their students to have a look at spiders and rats and things? I mean, what are they going to learn out of that thing in particular from a technique point of view?
Well, for the last two, it's definitely rhythm. I had to take a lot of time with slow practice and like counting each beat just to be able to play the piece. So I think that would help. And also the first piece, I think it gives the pianist like a chance to explore and to interpret the piece however they want, sort of.
The first piece you said. Okay. Yes, I was going to ask you, were you happy with how it was played, that first piece? Did you do justice to the spider? Let's see if you can
I thought it was going to be very interesting to hear someone play the spider. I was thinking about getting in touch with Nicole and playing through the pieces, but I didn't because I wanted to see what it would be like. It was very interesting. The first few lines I thought, that could be me playing, except she's better. And I think the only differences were that the minims and crotchets and quavers all related to each other a bit more familiarly than when I did it, and that just may be because I'm a composer and we like mucking around with things. No, it was great to hear someone else play the spider, and all of them.
Wonderful. Right, throwing it open to the critics. Oh, well done. She was first up. I'll bring you the phone.
We've got a question. This spider can be played in any ways, because it hasn't got metronome marking. Even though it's Senza Missoura, it still can have metronome marking, isn't it? But a crotchet equals to 120. It will totally change the mode.
Well, my understanding of Senza Missoura is that the actual notes are not tempo indications. They are often, and it's often to do with space-time notation as well. So that, you know, a quaver is sort of a bit faster than a crotchet, which is faster than a minim. I suppose that, yes, you could play this at crotchet 120, but then the question I would ask the player is whether they think that a piece that's about a spider building a web would want to go at 120. You know, and I mean, it makes me think of, there was a study once done on spiders where they fed the spiders drugs and then let them build the spider web. The one that the spider built on speed was really quite extraordinary, but I don't think that was a piece.
Yeah, I was going to say it depends on what the spider's eaten beforehand.
She said Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Using the spider.
Well, it's just like musicians, put them on speed, they think they're playing better, but in fact they're playing really terribly. No, we won't go down that track. Okay, over to one more question from the floor.
Kaleidoscope. You've marked the points of symmetry really well, and it's very easy to understand and beautifully written. I'm wondering, could it have been easily written if you put the bar lines where you've got the little dotted lines? Why did you choose to have those, like they're irregularly spaced through the piece? What made you choose to have the bar lines at different places?
Well, I think one easy answer would be ties. So immediately if we split up the crotchets that are halfway through, that puts ties in. Now, I don't know about pianists. I'm mainly a violinist. I find that ties across bar lines that hide the downbeat make it confusing to stay in tempo. So that might be my first response to why I might not have done that. The other one is that if I have a quick look, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that would have been a 6/8. I suspect we might have ended up with some very interesting small time signatures across the piece, but I think my overall reasoning behind that is that I just think it looked more manageable with larger bars. And also that then you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a bar line and an axis of symmetry. So I wanted to be able to show where the symmetry was, and if we'd had bar lines in the middle, there would just be bar lines everywhere and you wouldn't be able to see where the symmetry was. But it's a good point, and I think there's no easy answer to these things, and you often come across them. When you're composing, you do something, and the player says, well, why didn't you do it this way? You say, oh, well, there's this, but either one is a right answer.
The solution to the bar lines, to the time signatures, is to leave them out, just to have bar lines with your symmetrical pattern within each, and keep the ties.
Do you think that would have been...
I think that would have been easier. I mean,
I wondered.
It's very much, I like it. And I think as a pianist, I would prefer to play it like that.
Well, I wondered about that. Well, you can go right ahead, because I wondered. Well, that is really good to know, because, of course, there are such different ways to approach composing depending on your performance background. Mine is orchestral and chamber music, and therefore not having time signatures in a piece would have been somewhat problematic. But that is really good to know. Thank you.
Yes, there's a big difference between pianists and string players. String players can't play syncopation.
Come on, string players represent.
The other thing orchestral players don't like things like C flat, F flat.
Well, that's just not fair.
Pianists could really annoy if you don't spell it out technically. I'm just pulling your leg. Okay, you'll have a chance to get back at me later. I think we'd better move on for now. Whoa. Thank you both very much. It's wonderful, fantastic.